Welcome to the program, everyone, or welcome back to the program, I should say. It's the second part of the program, the morning brief this morning, and Nigeria's economy, well, gets our attention again this morning. Mr. Paul Alaje is the senior economist, SPM professional. He joins us virtually on the program. Mr. Alaje, I mean, you have been talking about Nigeria's economy for quite some time now. You talk about it very, very passionately. So must thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us this morning. But I'd like us to begin our conversation perhaps with an explainer for those who do not understand. When the MBS says that gross domestic product recorded growth, simplify that for us as much as you can. What does that mean?
Thank you so very much for having me. I want to say good morning to you and all our viewers now and those that will watch in the future across the globe. Now, the Bureau of Statistics reported that Nigeria GDP grew by 4.23% year on year as of Q2 2025. That's from April 1st to June 30th, 2025, which means that our gross domestic product, which is the total monetary value that exchange hands from goods and services. Nigeria uses GDP, unlike many countries that use GNP. But I don't want to turn it to a lecture, so I would not want to really go beyond that in terms of explanation. It was an improvement compared to 3.13 that we had in Q1, and for 2025, and 3.48 that we had in 2024 Q2. This is an improvement from those. And we also saw that nominal GDP was in fact humongous. It grew by 19.23%. Now, from 19.23% growth rate that we had in terms of nominal GDP, why did we have a real GDP that went so low to 4.3%? If in the real sense, the growth that we had was 19.23%, the factor, the differential, the factor that made a lot of difference from 19 to the point that we got to a real GDP of 4.23% is called inflation. Because when we have calculated total monetary value, the exchange rate in the economy for a given period of time, in this case, in one quarter, we now need to make provision for inflation. What is average inflation in that quarter? When we divided the number by the inflation rate, we got what we call the real GDP. So our inflation is still very high. If it were not high, we will not have that reduction from 19% plus now to say 4.23%. But as it is, it's still a major improvement compared to what we had. Now, looking at the real growth in the oil sector, the real growth in the oil sector grew. In fact, it was a rebound for the oil sector, while you have the non-oil sector, which grew by average of 3.64% year on year for 2025. Then we also noticed that the growth in industry sector overall, it grew strongly, even though generally it's still very weak. Industry was about 7.45%, is in fact beyond the average. But when you look at the manufacturing subsector, which is the key sector in the industry sector, manufacturing sector grew much slower compared to what it did this time when we compare last period. It was 1.60%, unlike 2.07%. Agriculture, which has been a major driver, major contributor in terms of our GDP. However, agriculture also grew to 2.28% compared to what it was as of 2.60%. Then I will end on service. Service grew, even though compared to what it was 3.94%, but right now it's 3.94% compared to what it was at 3.83%. Give and take, this is what the GDP number reported. But there are a lot of implications that people need to know, that oil is still a major determinant when it comes to what happened to Nigeria economy. I know successive governments have said Nigeria economy has diversified diversified. So when we talk about diversification, it's not just about what gives government revenue. We're also saying what factor influence what happens to our GDP number the most. We also saw that non-oil sector grew moderately, and the oil and gas, as a structural gap in the economy, it also has a lot of implication. But this is what has been consistent over the year. Manufacturing sector is very, very low. And a country like ours, if you must have economic miracle, we need to find yeast. You know, they put yeast in bread and you see the bread swell up. That's yeast that will help our economy to rebound, that will help our economy to grow, that will allow politicians and professionals to achieve $1 trillion economy in the next 8 years, as we have said. In fact, if I can give you the number we need to grow by, if we want to achieve that by 2033, we need to grow on an average of 17% GDP growth rate. And you ask me why? Before Naira was devalued, all we needed to grow by was about 8 to 10%. Now, why? Because our GDP number before was $425 billion. Today, our GDP number is about $250 billion. So if we must achieve $1 trillion economy, then we need to grow at an average of 17%. In fact, with some fraction, and we need to maintain that steadily. So we must first of all say it is good that we have grown. We are not seeing negative growth like we saw about 4-5 years ago. You know, almost. I meant 2020 and 2016, not 4-5 years ago. About 9 years ago. Then 2020 we saw another major negative growth as a result of COVID. But economies have started moving on. Nigeria economy must follow suit. Yes, our GDP number has been largely devalued because have been largely reduced, in fact half, because of devaluation. But now we are picking ourselves up, and I only hope that with this new number we will grow even more steadily compared to where we were, where we are before. Now, the impact on the people, the impact of the people is very important. What is the impact of 4.2% GDP growth rate? We first need to look at what is our population number. Our population number is between 2.6 to 3%, depending on authority that we are looking at. For a population that has that, we need a GDP that is not less than 7%, or a GDP number that is not less than 10%. If we want to grow, besides, we have a target that we want to achieve as an economy. So we have seen some level of rebound, because in economics, the first thing we check is stability, but we don't stop at this point of stability. We now say, with this stability lead to impact. So the first thing you check in terms of stability will be what is happening to GDP. We have seen that GDP has maintained positive growth rate, even though the overall GDP has emaciated, has been reduced, and that is the challenge there. But we have seen positive growth rate, and that cannot be denied. That is a positive thing. Two, we look at exchange rate. Exchange rate seems to have stabilized around 1,500 to 1,600. In recent time, we have also seen report of 1,490, which is a major one, which is a good one. Inflation is another factor we need to check when we are looking at whether a country has stabilized or not. Inflation, for 5 consecutive periods, we have seen that it has reduced. Now, whether that it will make impact or not is that we are still on double-digit inflation. Averagely around the world, we should be between 2 to 3%. What we have seen is about 20%, a major reduction from 24% that we were about 5-6 months ago.
All right. You touched on a very important aspect of the conversation moments ago when you talk about impact on the people. If we added 4.23% to 3+% recorded in the first quarter, that's a significant movement in terms of GDP growth. But what the people are saying is that this hasn't translated to an increase in the money in my pocket, my purchasing power. Neither has it translated to, more food on my table. There's a disconnect there. Mr. Alaje, can you please tie it together for us?
Okay, so what's one of the limitations of using GDP to measure economic growth or economic performance? There are other parameters. Economists want to see what is the distribution of income. Distribution of income is very important, and we use perhaps Gini coefficient as part of the ways we measure whether income is equitably distributed. So for Nigeria, income is not exactly equitably distributed, and there are quite a number of materials that are available for that. So the GDP number has grown, but positioning of the people, the income of the people have been largely affected. So it means that if 4 of us, let's say 3 of us make a country, and each of us make 1,000 naira, it's something, I don't know what happened. I suddenly now made 12,000 naira. The 2 of you now make 1,000 naira more. The truth is that our economy has grown sporadically. So you see our GDP grow with some hundreds of improvements in terms of growth rate. The question is, has the income been well distributed? This is where we now have government to ensure that when monies that is collected as taxes goes to the government, those monies are now distributed in the key area of need. And of this key area of need, one of the things we need to look at will include infrastructure, making rails available for people from their homes to their place of work, from their farms to the market, connecting their school to areas where they need to go, and enhancing distribution of income and allowing SMEs to do business better. Rail and road infrastructure are very, very key among so many other things authority needs to do. The next is education and electricity. Cost of electricity, in fact, recent research revealed that SME mentioned that one of the things that affected their performance is cost of electricity and subsidy that was removed, because that served as succor to them. The distribution of income has been largely affected. Government, therefore, must find a way to give positive impact in the life of people. And I am not suggesting hand-to-mouth strategy that we saw a number of years back, and even in recent time, giving 5,000, 10,000, 8,000 to the people, or sharing bags of rice. That has never worked, not just in Nigeria. It did not work in Tanzania. It did not work in China. I don't know why successive government, especially subnational and federal, continue to think by sharing this money is going to help to succor poverty or to reduce poverty among the people. What it does most of the time is to sustain them in hunger and deprivation. So the distribution of income is a major challenge here, and we need subnational as well as the federal and states to do this. Allow local government to function. Let them go back to constructing local government markets, construct local government road. The impact will be directly on the people that are the grassroots. So that when you ask that where is the impact, you can say that we are building new market, you can sell cheaper, you have more demand, and we also make sure that in all of this we are doing security at the local and at higher level is very important. All
right, Mr. Alaje, I mean, it's always a pleasure to listen to you do this analysis. You have queried some of the economic reforms of Mr. President, but hate him or you like him, he will go down the history books as perhaps one of the boldest presidents we've seen in very recent times with these economic reforms, taking out fuel subsidy on day one, other subsidies as well, and all of that. But I know that you have also queried the issue of floating the naira. Talk to us about that. What are your reservations about some of these economic reforms?
Yeah, so I remember that before election, I was interviewed by another media house, and later by your media house, my friend, Mr. Okinbaloyi, as to what do I think when the next president, among the top 3 or top 4 runners for 2023 election. I said, whatever they want to do, if they must remove subsidy, they must ensure that there are alternatives, which are refineries. I said, privatize the 4 refineries. When the Dangote refinery come mainstream, be very careful such that it is not just the only refinery you will have. The reason is because if they ask you to buy PMS 2,000 naira today, would you say no? In the short term, you might say you are not going to buy. but it's a major need. So we need we need to be strategic in terms of securing our energy sector. Now, and you cannot blame Dangote Refinery. I think one of the persons that has even helped Nigeria to rebound today is that refinery. Again, another extreme will now be if we are fighting Dangote Refinery, instead of us ensuring that there are other refineries that we come mainstream as soon as possible. That is the strategy. NNPC or association of group trying to find Dangote Refinery to fight it down, it will actually lead to a common destruction. In fact, most of the time, for those of us that are in research, we laugh because sometimes we see coordination failure. And capitalists, you cannot blame them. The capitalists, we take advantage of that coordination failure. What government needs to do is to partner, is to find new investments that will also invest in the same market, because monopoly is dangerous anywhere in the world, but duopoly, when they unionize or when they agree, it can even be more dangerous, because if you go to A and go to B, prices are both high. And if you have oligopoly, it's the same. So for me, the challenge we had with abrupt removal of subsidy was that there was no alternative. Was it both? Well, it depends on the interpretation of it.
Let's speak to more challenges now and interrogate the 4.23% GDP increase. Just last month, the opposition, a key member of the opposition, I'm talking about Bauchi State Governor, had criticized the government, the federal government, over poor budget implementation, saying only 30% of the 2025 budget had been deployed, had been implemented, and this is someone who should know. So if we're recording GDP growth rate back to back, the question is, where is the economic activity coming from that has enabled GDP growth rate back to back, in fact, an increase in the second quarter?
Yeah, thank you so very much. So when you talk about GDP goes beyond government. A formula, permit me to be a bit technical, is Y equals to C plus I plus G. And inside that G, you have Y minus C. I will give you the interpretation of everything. Plus into X minus M. What does that mean? The national income of a country equals to household consumption plus investment. And that's where you have the private sector, investment, plus government income minus government minus taxation, which is withdrawal from that effect. And I hope I have time to talk about withdrawal, because we are talking at the numbers now, plus net income from abroad. So when you look at it, what are we both buying? I mean, all of us in Nigeria's household, all of us, what's our contribution to the GDP, which is very significant. We have the numbers. Now, private sector contributed. The government has not put its own expenditure in the national income as it should. Remember that when we talk about government, we are not referring to only federal government. The remaining 36 plus FCT, in fact, FCT is doing so much on that in 2025 in terms of road infrastructure. They will be accounted for. So if federal government is not, which they should. If they are not, it only means that a component of government is not contributing to the GDP as they should. Now, withdrawal, which is where I'm going. If you want your growth rate to be sporadic, if you want your economy to grow really fast, you have to be wary of excessive tax increases. I've been saying this over the years. Now, when you continue or you think that you can increase taxes unnecessarily, it will have negative impact on your growth, because it's a withdrawal. And those that will spend the money, most of the time, we may not have control as to whether the entire money is plowed back into the system. So we need to be wary of excessive rates of taxes, of excessive bound of taxes, because it may have implication on growth rates, it may have implication on overall GDP, etc., etc. The net income from abroad. From report now, we are doing more in terms of exports, but we also need to look at what we are doing in terms of payments, because both we account for the influence we have from that. So here is it. Federal government has no reason not to have started deploying capital infrastructure into the system. This has been budgeted for. At first, what this will leave us with will be that some of the things that government has planned to spend in 2025, we might now roll them over to 2026. Eventually, when 2026 budget starts, we might be seeing both budget side by side. I have advised that we need to create a system, a digital platform where budget implementation will be transparent, where we will all see, and the time for which deployment should be done will be clearly observed. And I want to advise those in authority, especially the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that this is done on time. Because if we don't, jobs that should have been created in 2025 will be eroded, because we are talking capital, comfort and provision of right environment that should have been done in 2025. We also not be there. And you know, companies
we have to go now.
that would have also made profits in 2025 might be denied if you don't do the needful this moment today.
Just quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you look at this current administration, the economy, 2 years down the line, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate this economy?
Well, I have been advised not to rate any government on a scale 1 to 10. The reason is because the last time I tried to, calls came in from all over, from my friends in government. Okay. So people should know I had a lot of friends in government, and I love the government too. And I also have friends who are not in government, perhaps those in opposition. I also have friends who are not in opposition and not in government. So because I am an economic watcher, people should know that I am an economic watcher.
Yes,
I try not to make opposition look strong or government look strong. My role is that I will tell
it's a fine place. It's a fine place to leave it, Mr. Alaje.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You've gone political on me, so thank you so much for your views this morning.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Paul Alaje is a senior economist, SPM professionals. Thank you indeed for analyses this morning on the program. Well, when you take a look at Nigeria's economy, it's, sometimes people fall to the approach. It's like likening it to what is happening in Manchester United with Ruben Amorim, his formation. Some have questioned the style of President Bola Tinubu. Some say the capitalism system perhaps is not working for Nigeria. But hey, this is the morning brief. We get to take a look at something else. The Constitution review, the public hearings ongoing across the nation yesterday gets our attention. Next, we are live in the nation's capital, Abuja, as we get more perspectives. Please stay with us.